Section 18 of Music by Ursula Creighton. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 18, Paganini. Paganini, 1784 to 1840. The word virtuoso is often applied to a musician who attains an unsurpassed brilliancy of technique in playing on an instrument, and the title was deserved by Paganini, who certainly was the most marvelous performer on the violin that has ever been known. With his extraordinary powers of playing, he changed the outlook on violin playing. He extended the capacity of the violin in unimagined ways, and gave other musicians a vision of the powers and brilliance of instrumental music that had not been known before. His playing left no one unmoved. Some applauded, some wept, and those who did not completely enjoy it could not but be aware of the sensation it produced and its marvelous, if momentary, beauty. Paganini's appearance was unusual. He was very tall, very thin, his face waxen color, and his long black hair fell on his shoulders. When he first came to England to play in 1831, people followed him in the street and even touched him to make sure that he was real. His childhood had been a hard one, and his father's severity was such that he was punished for small faults by being deprived of food. This, with the hard work he always did practicing, ruined his health, and all his life he was subject to painful digestive illness. Anyone less devoted to his instrument might have been deterred by such harshness and such bodily weakness, but Paganini worked unceasingly until he had acquired his phenomenal certainty and made his playing perfect in his own new way. After that he never practiced. In later life he played only his own compositions, and these he seldom wrote down. He never took his violin from its case in his own room except to feel a few intervals with his fingers. There must have been a magic in his playing, some strange vitality, which subdued everybody who heard him. Once, in Leghorn, as he limped onto the platform with a sore heel, the audience began to laugh. When the candles fell off his music desk, fresh laughter began, and when one of his strings broke, the amusement became greater. But when Paganini continued playing on the remaining 3 strings, doing feats that no one had performed before, and some not even since, then came wild applause. His playing was the outcome of his whole self. He lived lost in his own music. Sometimes he would pass the whole day sitting on a sofa in a room, just hearing music in his head, and every evening he sat in the dark for some hours. Once, in Italy, he was seen lying out in a storm. Again, one early morning he was found in the mountains playing wildly while the birds sang. And one night in Florence, a group of young people, walking home to the music of a guitar, were astounded when an apparently mad figure rushed in among them, seized the guitar, and played as none of them could play, dancing in front of them, then handed back the instrument and disappeared. It was Paganini who had felt moved to join their revelry and make it more exciting than they could. He made large sums of money by his playing, but always lived simply. His luggage was an old battered trunk which carried his violin, his music, and a few clothes. He ate and drank very little, and was content with any room, provided it was quiet. He had several violins. One was a Stradivarius, but the one he loved best was made by Joseph Guarnerius. It was a gift to him. When first released from the severity of his home life, uneducated except in music, uncontrolled, and making a good deal of money by his playing, he took to gambling. He lost such sums that once he had to pawn the violin he then possessed, and he arrived in Leghorn to play without an instrument. A French merchant who owned a beautiful Guarnerius violin lent it to Paganini for the performance, and after the concert refused to take it back, saying his hand should not profane the violin Paganini had used. This violin remained Paganini's dearest possession. He died with it in his arms, and his improvisation on it in the last hours of his life was the most marvelous music he produced. Of all the music he composed, very little was published, and though many violinists can now perform many of the feats he created, there are some that belong to him alone. He was very generous to poorer artists and would play for any good cause and give to any who needed. He was devoted to his mother and his only son. He had friends in every country, among the best-known people of the day. For Byron he had a special admiration. He disliked being away from his own country, though when very ill he went to the south of France, hoping to get better. But he died at Nice in 1839. He left his violin to his native town of Genoa, where it is kept in a glass case in the museum, unplayed on since that most marvelous and almost legendary violinist touched its strings. End of section 18 of Music by Ursula Creighton, read by Martha Weller, Champaign, Illinois, March 14, 2024.